Have you ever wondered what it would be like if an actual watchmaker decided to come out with his own brand and hand assemble his own watch? E.Stohlman is today's sponsor for this video. He actually sent me a watch in for a review. The watch is on loaner, it's getting sent back. And if you want to know a deep dive into the brand's history, I did a live unboxing with the community and I'll leave a link to that in the description below. So let's take a look at this unique vintage inspired timepiece and see what we come up with. This is the E.Stohlman Earl HAVAAN TUVALI Collaboration Limited Edition. The case material is made of 0.925 sterling silver and has a rhodium plate. It has a diameter of 39 millimeters, a lug to lug of 46 millimeters, a thickness of 14.3 millimeters, and a lug width of a strap-friendly 20 millimeters. The crown is 6.4 millimeters. It has a water resistance of up to 100 meters, and it weighs in at 91 grams. Powering this timepiece, we have an MWW7081A, and it's fully assembled, tested, and regulated from Maryland Watchworks. This 7081 movement is based on an ETA 2824 architect and can be used as a replacement for the 2824. The movement is comprised of a Swiss and other foreign parts, and finally assembly takes place in Hagerstown at the MWW shop. Hagerstown is positioned at the crossroads of two major intersects, the I-70 and the I-81. The reference number 7081 is a proud affirmation to the local ties of Hagerstown. This caliber beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour and provides a 38-hour power reserve regulated to plus or minus 10 seconds per day. It has a custom rotor that rotates bidirectionally with no shuffling audible sound like you would find in a Miyota series. The screws are painted in a color depending on the model that you receive, and in this case they are painted in a gold color. This caliber inside the watch is not truly American made, but it is definitely assembled in America. In my personal opinion, the majority of the watch's value derives from this custom ETA-based movement. Knowing a skilled, trained professional watchmaker has assembled all the components from scratch holds a nostalgic feeling while having an updated refreshment, avoiding service needs like you would find with an actual vintage movement. For the watch's strap, we receive a handmade tan leather strap that has a 20 millimeter down to a 16 millimeter. The stitching on the strap is color coded to blend with it nice and neatly. For hardware, we receive a polished fold over single-sided friction fitted clasp engraved in its center, making for a solid, snappy securement. The clasp folds over the additional slack of the strap in the inner portion and serves for a good life extender for the leather strap, as you won't require the need to bend the material back and forth when taking it off and on the wrist as you would on a conventional buckle to a leather strap. I overall found this leather strap to be of very high quality and extremely supple to the touch. It completely conforms and molds to your wrist with the capability of balancing the watch head weight without any issues. Taking a look now at the case back, we receive a sapphire exhibition style, and instead of sterling silver, due to it making direct contact with your skin to completely avoid any irritation, we receive a 316L stainless steel to the outer side of the case back. It has a brushed ring just outside of that crystal with specifications and branding engraved within it, including the limited number model, and in this case 1 of 5 for the collaborative timepiece. And finally, there's a mirrored finish polish towards the outside of the case back. Being that the movement is decorative, including the rotor, blacked out bridges, and gold color screws, it's definitely worth the visual effect to have an exhibition case back, which typically adds a few millimeters to the thickness. In addition, from this angle, we can also spot engravings on the posterior top of the lugs of the watch, marking the case's material and the brand signature O in Stohlman. For keyless work function, we have a coined edge finishing to an onion style shaped crown with a reddish colored resin insert featuring the engraved O. The crown is easy to grip, winding to the watch feels excellent, and you can feel positive resistance to the tight tolerances of the gears while winding the movement, setting the date, and setting the time. Again, the case material is made of 0.925 sterling silver, and on its own it has a softer composition than stainless steel and even ranks softer than 14 karat gold. Normally it would be prone to developing a unique patina quickly because ordinarily silver undergoes oxidation, gradually adopting a black hue unless regularly polished. However, to increase its strength and to maintain its luster, Stohlman has added rhodium plating for his watch case. On the side of the case, we can spot a vertical brushing sandwich running along the side entirely entirely into the lugs as well. It also has a slight recessive factor in its center case, and this is bordered above and below with a mirror polish that hasn't been continued on the horn lug. These horn lugs instead feature brushing entirely and have a nice thick fold to its top inner portion against your desired strap. Another thing to note is that rhodium plating will eventually wear, causing the case to patina to a darker hue, so you either will need to have it replated or accept the patina factor. I think I would personally let it gain the darker hue, giving it even more of a vintage, authentic aesthetic vibe, honestly. Moving north of the watch's case, we have a 3-level stepped bezel. It's fully mirror polished throughout, and it's definitely correct when wanting to lean into that vintage vibe. Protecting the dial and its contents, we get a double-domed sapphire crystal with AR coating. The AR coating is somewhat effective for repelling reflection, but it's definitely not perfect, and I feel like this is exacerbated by the high volume of high polished surfaces sitting just below it. For time reading, we have polished leaf style hands for the hour and minute hand with a slight vein running down the center of the hands to help them dance in the light source. The second hand has a spear shaped balance with a pointer extended all the way out to the edge of the dial. And in speaking of that dial, this is where the watch draws most of its attention aesthetically, in my opinion. To start, the watch rehaut has been engraved in a full 360 rotation with the repetitive brand naming of E.Stohlman throughout it. To follow that rehaut, we have a silver black tone enamel circle section housing the watch's white painted minute markers and polished Arabic numerals which reflect light in a manner reminiscent of nearly luminescent material, drawing attention to the three-dimensional indexes that work together with a black enamel to create an almost sunburst effect from different angles of light reflection. That was a mouthful. Stohlman takes a unique approach by placing the applied indexes on delicate pedestals, subtly lifting them. This subtle elevation creates a mesmerizing interplay of light and shadow on the dial overall. At the lower 6 position on top of the enameled portion, you can read the white text representing the collaboration efforts between Stohlman and HAVAAN TUVALI. Also, a smaller date wheel aperture is exposed with a square cutout against a white background and a black painted date number. Bordering the center of the dial is a silver polished trimming highlighted in a double step downward into a specialized dial handmade with real tobacco leaves. Thus, the pattern and color is different between each dial, and depending on the temperature and humidity of the area or country the dial is exposed to, the surface may change over time. And finally, at the 12 position, we can spot an additional aperture for the printed half day against the white background to the date wheel with a black painted text, except for Sunday featuring in red instead. Now, this timepiece is absent of any luminescent material officially and therefore incapable of showing any nocturnal adaptation. In my humbled opinion, opting out of having any lume is acceptable within the enthusiast circles for a dressier timepiece, though I am aware that for some, any watch absent of this glow in the dark feature simply wouldn't sit well with them. This Earl HAVAAN TUVALI is a limited edition available in 2 color options with only 5 timepieces each and are individually numbered from 1 through 5. The cost is $2,800 to $2,900 USD and come with a standard 2-year warranty. I'll leave a link in the description below where you guys can find the E.Stohlman timepieces availability. Now, there's several ways that you guys can add a vintage watch into your collection. The first way is actually purchasing a vintage watch, which would require a lot of research to make sure that you're A, buying the seller, B, making sure that watch has been serviced correctly throughout the years, and C, making sure that there's no Frankenstein parts within the watch. The other option is getting something retro, let's say like the F91W or the SKX if you can happen to get your hands on one. And it's not necessarily that that particular watch was manufactured 36 years ago like the F91W, but it still has that same exact design language that it had many moons ago. The other most common way is actually getting a vintage inspired watch, and there's a lot of competition in that space with getting a lot of value, and this is actually the most expensive watch that I've featured on the channel, so I can understand that there are going to be points to be made for the value. The first one that stands out the most is it not having lume. The second would probably be that there's no bracelet included. And the third is the anti-reflective coating that isn't terrible, but isn't the best at the same time. But there's something to be said about having a watch that's actually unique and having a watchmaker that actually designed it. Nothing from the watch has any kind of clomage or homage to it. It's a complete one-for-one, very unique watch. There's a super limited batch to the watches available, so if you're purchasing this watch, you're probably going to be the only person at that watch meetup wearing it. And I've gotten to the point where those are things that I could value moving forward because I've already run the gamut between having actual vintage watches, having retro watches, or one-for-one clomage watches, or having a vintage inspired watch. So I don't want to be insensitive to the fact that it is an expensive watch. And even for myself, this is now in my radar, but it's going to take me some time to save up. But I still think that it's in my list of things to do or watches to inquire moving forward because of those strengths that it does have. But I'm interested to know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you think about the watch in totality. I make it a priority to answer all of the comments that are left below. I appreciate you guys for spending your most valuable asset, which is time, and I hopefully will see you in the next